Hi, I'm Suneera Madani, and I'm a mom of two, a daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who went from scaling an idea to $1 billion business. Yes, $1 billion business. Along the way, I learned that less than 2% of female founders ever hit 1 million in revenue, and I became obsessed on a mission to change that. I believe that there is so much gatekeeping in business knowledge, and that we as female entrepreneurs should be learning from other female founders and leaders who have broken the statistics. Since I never went to CEO school, I've had to learn it all the hard way, but you shouldn't have to, because we believe that you deserve to have it all. And honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. All right, Sal, so we are on part 2 of this episode. For those that have not caught up, that we left you guys on a crazy cliffhanger of the moment that what was happening going through Sal's head when he decided to come partner with me at Stacks. And it wasn't Stacks at the time. We just went through the last 30 minutes of the most unbelievable stories about our childhood, about our values, Sal, getting to know Sal a little bit, about his first business, burger bar, and just so many amazing things. Honestly, it's been one of the most fun things I've ever recorded. So, and I've never even done this cliffhanger thing. So all of this is new. All right. So you were telling us what was going on in your head when I decided to ask you about coming to join me as my business partner.
So from my perspective in the story, Suneera had called me. You had called me to ask me to take 2 weeks off of work so that way you could go to your honeymoon.
Yes.
And that you just needed to manage.
And my honeymoon was a year after my wedding because I was so focused on the business.
Absolutely. And it was something like, I don't quote me the number, but either between 30 to 60 customers you probably had signed up at this point. You had just started you had a full-time employee that was just starting. You had an intern.
Yep.
You had just gotten your first office, which was a total of 210 square feet.
Yeah.
I remember going to IKEA to decorate it. And so we were getting pictures and you're like, hey, I just want somebody here to manage. And I was like, okay. So I took off 2 weeks of where I was working to come do this for 2 weeks. And I remember just seeing all of it, right? All of it from the marketing aspect, the style of customers, the what was happening. And I was just like, man, there's something here, right? So I was slightly enthused for you at the time. There wasn't anything there. It was just like, man, there's actually something here and I think you can build a legit business. But coming from all my software and all the backgrounds, there just wasn't automation. There wasn't everything at the time. This was paper applications, physically. We had a fax machine.
I know.
But it was a digital fax. It was a digital fax number.
It was a digital phone number. But this is 2012. And so this is a time
this is 14, 15.
No.
Yeah. Or
2012 I started. Yeah. 2013. 13
yeah.
is when we got it off the ground.
Yeah. And so, so I went through this 2-week journey, helped onboard a few more customers, new things. You had got back, said thank you, and I had left back for San Francisco. So going back to your question is what was going through my head when you called.
The Fast Company thing hadn't happened yet. You had had not happened yet. Yeah. You had come down to support me. You're right. Yeah. When Faisal and I were on our honeymoon, and you had come in to just manage the business to support me. You actually took your PTO to come down to do it. Yep. And because we just didn't have enough support, I was doing all of the hats. And this is also part of it, right? Yep. You have to wear every hat as an entrepreneur. We didn't come out the gate. I didn't have money to go hire people.
And I'll tell you that story because when it wasn't really a CRM system. I think we were using Zoho. I think you had installed. It was the first thing that she put something in. And
that's when we weren't sponsored by HubSpot yet. Shout out to HubSpot.
HubSpot. And in there, by the way, huge HubSpot fan.
Huge HubSpot
fan. In the CRM system.
And they don't pay him to say that.
There was 14 names of employees. I'm like, why are there so many different names? But they all, for some reason, started with S. So it was Sadie, Susan, Stephanie.
Oh my God, you're going to love this.
And what I found out is that was Suneera transferring it to herself.
Yes.
And each one of those were different people. So Susan was the customer service rep. So Suneera would be like, oh, let me get you my customer service rep. and transfer it to herself as a different email address and a different person to pretend to be a large company.
Oh my God. This takes me back. Oh my God. Hold on. Yes. I literally manage like multiple inboxes, but this is what's so cool about like, you have to wear all the hats. And I literally had a different email. Like I had all these departments. So I had the vision of like what our company would be like. I just couldn't hire the people.
Couldn't afford it.
And so I literally had these like, what do you call those names? Like, I can't think of the word, but I had
aliases.
Yeah, little aliases.
Yeah.
And different names for each of the different department heads. And I was like head of customer support. And it was just me on a different email with like a different signature. Yeah. And so only to make our customers, I mean, we were like, what was crazy about the business is I'm handling people's money, right? I'm handling their payments. And so there was a sense of security that needed to be there.
Yeah, scale. You needed to act like you belonged.
Yes. And so that was a way that, okay, so that's funny that you remember that I had 14 different names and it was all me.
And I remember during that time frame before the article came out, we would speak probably more regularly because I was like, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that. You need to do this. And so a lot of the times because you had so many things on your plate, you're like, can you just do it? Right. Yeah. So it was like this, can you help me build the financial model? Okay, I know that we need to automate this piece, but how do we do it? Yeah. So there was a lot of like, you and I were starting to build a version.
Oh no, you were literally my back end.
Right. And so I think that going back to your original question, when you called, it wasn't like this left field question. It was truly like,
you were preparing for it. You were like, I knew it was going to happen.
And in my back of my head, I knew it was going to happen, but I'm not going to lie to you. I was doing very, very well.
Yeah.
I was on a massive trajectory. And so I always knew that I was willing to help you in the background. I didn't need the credit. I didn't need anything. I was happy to support you in every capacity, but it wasn't going to be my full-time piece. And then when you called with the article, and the article, for those that don't know, it was Meet the Woman Trying to Change the Credit Card Processing Industry. And literally probably 5 out of the 10 things I said we needed to scale, and the other 5 things, all of them broke. So our GoDaddy website broke. At the time, we had just started to implement like DocuSign. So imagine like, once again, pioneers in the industry to get people to sign financial documents with electronic signature. Yeah. Agreed. And so there were so many different pioneer movements that we were going through, and all of these things started breaking. We had a single phone in the office. So it wasn't like there would be multiple lines or voicemails. If you called, you would just get a busy dial tone. For anybody that's ever called into like a radio station, that was basically what you were calling into. There wasn't a voicemail or et cetera. If you didn't get in touch with us, we probably lost hundreds or thousands of leads during that time frame. And so that's where, when Suneera called, I felt like my experience with some of the things that I'd just gone through, plus her tenacity and what she had built, we could actually build something. And so I came down on a flight and we worked through like the weekend, and I never left. And that was sort of the beginning of actually scaling the whole thing.
You never left.
Never left.
You're welcome, Mom.
Yeah, got me back to Orlando.
Oh my goodness. It is, I'm going to check this one off. That's amazing. I feel like I learned something today about what was going on in your head. And we did. I mean, we built it together, and there wasn't even a question. I think people want to know like how we split up things, or like how, like when you came into the business. Something that people may not know is that Sal and I have always been like one pot, like one, it's, you know, we literally have one team on like my, like tattooed on my hand, like always one team, one dream. And so we've never had this bit of competitiveness, yes, but it was never towards like for any one of us to have, I can speak for myself, and I know this is true about you, like one to have more than the other or anything like that. It was like always like everything is together for all of our collective, like as a family's success. Yeah. And you said that I'm 2 years older. Yep. And so I kind of want to, you know, how did we end up splitting things up as a company?
So I remember starting off, and you were like, okay, I want to bring you on as partner. And like anything else, for anybody that brings on a partner, there's always like this moment you have in the back of your head. You're like, oh man, we're going to have the uncomfortable conversation of like equity, dollars, what are you going to get paid? Yeah. Like, and every entrepreneur goes through it. Anytime you bring on a new partner, and every concept is like, okay, do I give him 5% as my CTO? Or okay, if I give him that, do I create these incentives and all of these things, which are all great conversations to go through. And I remember Suneera being like, look.
That was a year in.
And she's like, I don't want us to ever have any problem with our relationship. We've seen all sorts of different hardships through different family members, different areas.
Our own, like we've seen so much like from businesses not work out, you know, in family. And so we've seen it. And I was like, I do not want that. Like our relationship and what we have as a family is like the most number one important thing to me. And so how can we avoid that to start?
And so she said, let's just split it down the middle. However, since she is 2 years older, she would get 2% more. So for those that don't know, Suneera owns 51% of the business. I own 49% of the business. She also makes $2 more than me. That grew to $2,000.
It was $2,000 initially.
$2,000 more than me. When we built an office, she had 2 square feet more than me. So the concept has always been
it's been a fun big sister thing.
And we have continuously done it. Actually, the first time we actually recapped the business, if you remember, even in our like first equity, like
the first sell.
Yeah. When we got paid, they even paid you $2 more.
I know.
Out of the concept within it. But I think
our investors love that little banter thing back and forth. Everyone knows it. It's such a fun, but it was always split. It was down the middle. And even that, what's really fun is like as you raise capital and things like that, like that even that 2% became like nothingness. In our scale, but the goal was, and I think that's something that, you know, if you're thinking about, if you have a partner in your business, if you're looking to bring on a co-founder, things also, like something that I would say why it really worked well for us as true partners as well. I never had to think about, like, we always came from the same, like, we were both going to win, right? Or we were both going to lose. So one person never had like more skin in the game for any decision making or for like advocating something else. Like no matter what, there was this massive amount of trust that you have as like, he's my brother. I trust him more than anything, right? And so the trust was naturally there. But I also think that in partnership, where it doesn't work out is when one person is still more dominant than the other. And there were areas that I would say from a work role perspective, like, and I think that we split those things up differently, but always at the end of the day, it didn't matter because it was down the middle. It was like equal. I always knew we were coming from equal sides to the table.
We both wanted the same result.
We always wanted the same result. And that
doesn't mean we didn't disagree
oh
or
my God,
argue
did
or
we
fight.
disagree?
Yeah. So we've had those challenges and but yeah, it was always that we both wanted the same outcome, and that was always true.
And just to kind of, you know, high level fast forward, I mean, we took that business from just those 30 to 60 customers, and I would say that you were the secret weapon for scale, by the way. So although it started, like, everybody brings something unique to the table. Like, you need to have all the pieces to make it work in this like magical big way. Like if you want to have a business that's $1 billion business, it has to come from, there's a lot of pieces that it takes for it to come together. And the team, at the end of the day, especially the founding team, is the most important piece to that puzzle to see, is it even going to get successful beyond that, you know, $10 million mark. And once you're past that $10 million mark, then it's just a matter of operational things to hit scale and whatever else is to take it from
all
that
the
10.
Easy stuff.
All the easy stuff. None of it's easy. But that's initial part of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you learn about in a company if it's going to be successful or if it's not. And the team is so important. And I find so often, and this is something I talk about too, you know, we have our audience is primarily women, female entrepreneurs. And one thing that I find that women, we just don't take enough risks on adding in team members, scaling through people. And we would not have been able to be successful if we didn't bring in the right pieces. And so my background with marketing, and we both had a finance background, so we were great in terms of our industry that we had. However, Sal was focused on sales and operations. I was more focused on go-to-market, right, and marketing. And I was a great storyteller. Like I was able to get us into Fast Company within the first like 6 months without having a PR company, right? And so there was this great element of like vision and storytelling, but marketing, but also we needed that operational scale. And the third leg to our stool that was missing was we were building on someone else's technology. So we had an unbelievable product, a great edge in the market comes to our pricing model, all of these things, but we didn't have our own proprietary solution. And so we recognized that although we were this like amazing partnership, there was another leg to the stool that was missing. And that's where our technical co-founder, our other co-founder, Jacques, came into the picture.
Yep.
And Sal and I joined a tech accelerator. Again, being in person, figuring it out, getting ourselves in the room. And we're like, where do we go find a CTO? We're going to find him at a tech accelerator. And so that's how we ended up meeting Jacques, and he became this like perfect third leg to the stool. And you got to have 3 legs to the stool because it's not gonna stand up. And so he became my other brother, and our other brother.
I had lunch with him yesterday.
Into the journey. And so 10 years of building, working together, taking the company to our first million that year. Like that first $1 million mark was such a milestone, so important, to then raising venture capital, right? Being told no constantly, to fighting our way from like why we're building a company in Orlando, Florida. There was no tech companies here. I mean, like I can tell you countless stories of how shitty great, but also hard the last decade was in building. And then we sold the company in 2020 to private equity. And then we resold again last year. And it was valued at north of $1 billion.
Yeah.
And we took the company from nothing to, 400 plus employees, multiple offices. We did multiple mergers and acquisitions. We acquired companies. We raised almost $500 million in capital. We returned hundreds of millions of capital for our investors and for our community. And we built a company always based on our values. Like that, It was a culture of stacks. And we built this textbook perfect company. And we scaled it. And now we look back, and now we exited the company. But I have to ask you, Sal, looking back, what is the biggest advice that you would give yourself as a young entrepreneur, like starting out, and now through all of these lessons learned from building from nothing to $1 billion? All right, I don't get to have a lot of unicorns on my podcast. So what is it like? What are some big lessons or advice that you want to give to our audience today?
There's definitely a couple. I think the first one that always resonated, and I think you'll share it, was just, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And we had a phenomenal team that we continuously brought to the table. I think one of Suneera's superpowers is bringing the best out of people, but finding great people. And we had from
you are what you attract.
CROs to CMOs to heads of sales to operations managers to frankly all 400 people. I would probably bet on those guys all day. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that made us successful, was just constantly checking our egos at the door, challenging ourselves to continuously build bigger, take the right risk in a calculated format, and going for it, right? I think that the team around us is probably one of the big things that I go back to, and it's probably a self-reflection, because I think when I remember myself, like I felt like I needed to do everything. And so I probably fought that myself, of like letting things go. Like
you're the biggest perfectionist that I thought I was a perfectionist, but you are a perfectionist.
I've been working on it.
We're both Virgos, by the way. So we're literally like textbook Virgos too.
I've been working on it, is what I'll say. But I think that was it. And some of it was out of fear, right? Some of it was because you felt like you could do a better job. Some of it was out of experience. But I think that the more we grew ourselves, attracted the right talent around us, that's sort of the one thing that it continues to bring through, is bring the team members on, pay for them, give them the right equity, get them incentivized. Because I think if everybody rows in the right direction at the same time, like magic does happen. And I think that's sort of the why we can call it a unicorn. But it wasn't just the unicorn outcome. I mean, those 10 years, I've always said it is like, it's truly about the journey. And I'd say that was probably one of the most fun things we've ever done, or I've ever done in my entire life.
The best years of our life. Like, I feel so grateful and so lucky for this experience. Regardless of the outcome, I would do it over again exactly the same way. Like I wouldn't change a thing. And my next question to you is like, would you change anything going back?
I wouldn't. You know, it's if you look at, you know, Instagram, TikTok, there's all these like inspirational videos every day of this person who's like, oh, if you know, do the best thing, you'll never work a day in your life, right? I actually don't believe. I think if you do something you're passionate about, you work harder than anybody in your life, right? Because I think you're willing to sacrifice your weekend. You're willing to go to work at night because you give a shit that much more than the other person.
I love that.
So I think it's the complete opposite perspective than the one that.
I actually agree. I've never thought about it that way. You're right. People are like, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. You're right. We work harder on the things that we love. That is not true. Today's actually 4th of July. So we're actually in studio today. And, you know, it's funny. We were walking into the studio and the AC is off. And our amazing, podcast manager, Carlos, who we love so much, Carlos was in the building. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, guys. The AC's off. And we both look at each other. We're like, oh, yeah, it's just the building. It's a holiday. And so we like immediately understood that what was taking place, because I will tell you the amount of nights and weekends and holidays that we've spent but never, I would tell you the best time is when it's like completely quiet in the office. And
every big innovation I think we ever had was on a offsite during a weekend or a holiday.
That wasn't part of a regular day-to-day. That's why it's so important to get yourself out of
always.
100%. And I think that I love that you said that you work harder, and that is a testament to the things that you have built, that we have built. Was your work ethic has always inspired me to work my best. And I would say that, you know, people do bring the best out of you, and you are the company you keep. Period. And that goes with your friends. And it's so important. That's why it's so important we talk about community and circles and your friends. Something that we, fail to mention here is that we were super privileged with the most unbelievably successful friends. When it doesn't just it doesn't just happen that way, right? So, Faisal became really successful quick. Not like everyone worked really hard, but when you're around the right people that are also rowing in that direction, that inspiration and that level of like, you're with people who kind of get it and who are dreaming big and who are working hard towards something. And it's not by luck that everyone that our friends group that is around us, every single one has a successful company, has a successful career, who has gone off to do the most unbelievable things. And you are the company that you keep. And it's so important. And so I just want to come back and say, we had such great inspiration around us.
Yep.
Of success that we're like, man, if this person can do it, so can we. And that's why it's so important for you to also surround yourself with the right people. Yep. And the company you keep is super important. And what's amazing about building a team is that you get to choose that family next. So you might not have those people around you in your life today. And you might be that. Usually entrepreneurs are the black sheep of their family. Like they don't usually come from families like ours that come from entrepreneurship. And that's why it's so important for you to cultivate those relationships around you that are thinking in that direction, because those good qualities then rub off on you. And one of the best qualities that has rubbed off about Sal on me is that go big, that, we could solve it, that show up, keep showing up, because I was kind of that person that I tend to give up fairly quickly. Like whether it doesn't seem that way or not, I'm usually like, this just fucking sucks. And I'm like, fuck it. Like I'm done. Like, let's just get rid of this thing. Or like, I'm quick to shoot the dog, right? Like I'm quick to shoot the dog, right, Sal? Like
that's not the saying, but yeah. It's fine. Continue. That's a whole different conversation.
No, we should talk about that. Yeah. By the way, I get all of the sayings wrong. I didn't live in America for like a big chunk of like
English is our second language.
Yeah, so like an important
but
part. But
Suneera loves all these mannerisms, etc.
It's not shoot the dog. You shoot the dog behind the barn.
Shoot the dog. That's fine. But they would be like, don't put the horse in front of the cart. No, you do put the horse in front of the cart.
Okay, I do, yeah.
It's water under the rug. No, it's water under the bridge.
I know. He used to have a whiteboard of like shit, like wrong quotes that I would
There was also a whiteboard that said shit Sal says, for the record.
Anyway, where was I? I was talking about my ability to give up quickly, right? Yep. So to shoot the dog. I want to call it that. I would be willing to just say, okay, let's let it go. And I still feel that way. When I get a setback, I mean, and let's face it, entrepreneurship is like this every single day. Every single day. You're going to have a super high and you're going to feel like you're on this amazing win, and then you're going to get bad news. Someone's going to quit on you. Something is going to happen from a marketplace, like, you know, something that's completely out of your control. You're going to get a bad review, right? I remember the first day that somebody wrote anything negative about us, like on a fucking Google review. And I was just like, this sucks. We're shutting down the business. Like, we just suck as a company, right? And it doesn't work that way. And so it's so important to have that balance. And Sal, I would say the one thing that you have given me is that tenacity to like keep going even when times are hard. And I think we were really lucky to have each other that even in the alternate when things were on the other side, we always had another voice of reason to say like, okay, it's not time to give up. Let's just find a solution here. And you really do need that in entrepreneurship. You really do, because this shit is really, really hard.
Yeah, look, I think yin and yang partnerships are the best ones. Like if we both thought the same way, we felt the same way, we did all the same things, I can tell you we would not have had a successful business, at least not to the level that it was. And I think that for anybody that has worked with us, like there have been times where they're like, what is going on here? Because both of us are passionate and bickering and going at it.
They're all right now like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to call it public settings, but closed settings with our team. So call it 8 to 10 people in a room. And people might have thought we might like throw a chair at each other of how intense we can get. But I can tell you that the moment we left that room and we made a decision, we were both the biggest cheerleaders of the decision we had made. And there was not, this was your idea or that was my idea. It was just purely talking through different perspectives. And it was always challenging each one of the things to be able to drive to making sure that when we did whatever it was, new pricing model, new product, that we had thought through the 15 things.
Or just deciding like, are we taking PTO on a certain like day? Like something that's like super basic.
Yeah, we had all sorts of topics. And but yeah, I think that's what definitely made it special.
I remember something that you always said as like, you know, when we've been interviewed several times together, and like people ask Sal, like, when did you know like you made it as a company? And you talk about walking the halls.
Yeah, I think it was the coolest moments is like when we really didn't know what other people in the conference rooms were doing, right? It was just like, you know that these are very smart people and that they're solving problems. And the fact that you were no longer the one that needed to be in every single room to solve the problem, and that people shared the passion, the vision, you had given them whatever framework, whether there was, you know, part of your QBRs or quarterly business reviews or your main goals for the year that you had shared with them. And, you know, if anybody uses Suneera's CEO School Journal, like those goals that you set in the beginning of the year, you set for your team to go and execute. And then you trust that all those things that are happening in that room are going back to the goals that you've set for yourself. And I think that was sort of some of the fun things that we got to see.
I love that. Why do you think it's so hard for people to, like, your description of, and I agree with that, is when other people, like when you remove yourself out of the job. Like I, even right now, coming back into now, like actually operating CEO School as a business, like this has been a passion project for so long. We've had a really tiny team. I've let them kind of operate. I've just come in and they're expecting me to be in everything. And I'm like, nope, y'all sell for it. You've been doing it without me for so, like, you don't need me, right? And I love pulling myself out of my job.
Yeah.
But I've learned that the hard way. I never used to be that way. What do you see? Like, what are some tips and things that you can give people who are afraid of letting that go? And why is that contributive to like the success?
Look, I think for any great entrepreneur, you will probably believe that you will do that job better than anyone. And that's probably true. However, if you have 100% capacity and you can hire 2 people to do it at 80% of what you would do, a simple math equation there means you got 160% output, right? So you're right. It won't always be exactly what you do. But maybe if you create and spend 5 minutes with them up front and 5 minutes on the tail end, something that was a 3-hour project, maybe you only spent 10 minutes on it. And then you can start to train them on what's important to you, why you go about it, and then you may also learn why they went about it somewhere else to help sharpen your own skill set. And so I think that you start to collaborate more. They get to learn from you. You get to learn from them. And I think it leads to just greater output. And I think that's something we try to do every day is work ourselves out of a job, right? And so how do we make sure that meetings can be held without us running? And we experienced it. We didn't show up to a meeting and we felt like nothing got accomplished because we get meeting minutes and we'd be like, why? What are we doing that is contributing to that problem? Are we too dominant? Yeah. Right. And then we would coach ourselves and be like, hey, today we're going to try to be quiet in the meeting. And we would both walk into the meeting and try to say like 10 words or less was our goal. And we would be like, let's see how they get it. And every urge in our bone would fight for us to chime in because we want to provide our opinion.
So many times we would each like not show up to a meeting. Like one person would go, and even though we're both invited, it'd be like, I could totally attend it, but I'm going to sit this one out. And then you report like back in that way. Speaking of coaching. What were some of the things that, that you've done over the course of your career to, you built a company that, you took it to 160 million in recurring revenue, like massive. Yep. You did acquisitions. You'd never done an acquisition before, Sal. Yep. You never done, we had different revenue streams for the company. We had a B2B segment. We had an enterprise segment. Yep. You scaled through so many different styles of technology. You didn't come from the payments industry. So much of it you learned on your own. How did you continually like up level yourself with guidance, mentorship, coaching? What were the things around you that made you successful?
Look, I'm a believer of doing every part of a job. So like I'm
jack of all.
Well, I say it in the way of like when you want to learn something, the best way is to put yourself in the position. Yeah. And so when we wanted to fix, I remember we were having, some challenges around, customer onboarding experience. I remember you printing out every single page from the website journey all the way down and inserting yourself to actually get on the computer and go through it to then
that was like last year. That's not literally
then taking the phone calls and trying to onboard a customer. And I think that what we learned along the way, even if we didn't have the skill sets, it was about actually going through the process, becoming a sponge, and then learning from the people around you. And then you get to apply what makes you special, right? So these things are not like novel concepts. M&A has probably happened a bunch of times. People have scaled businesses a bunch of times. So there's probably a rubric that's there, but it's what's going to make it unique for you. And so it was applying, working with mentors and getting feedback, working with your team who's gone through it, working with your PE groups to understand what they've historically done, and then creating your version of that plan, and then adapting and seeking feedback on a consistent basis, including, the 3 things we used to always do, even in our one-on-ones, which was like, what do you want me to keep doing? What do you want me to, do more of? And what do you want me to stop doing? Like those were 3 questions we would ask our direct one-on-one reports to give us feedback on, right? So it was an iterative approach that I think that we learned through. And it was just a constant learning mentality.
From a coaching perspective and also from a mentorship perspective, how often would you seek coaching and mentorship? And, what advice do you have for those around that, they're learning from? I love what you said specifically about putting yourself into, in solving those problems. And, we have to go do that. But from you said you can learn from the private, you can learn from all those people, but how do you go cultivate that mentorship relationship? Who were some of your biggest mentors and coaches?
Yeah. So, I had a variety of coaches throughout, and I still do. So many people I still keep in touch with. But, I learned a ton in my Anaplan days, both from raising capital and building a sales motion from a gentleman named Dennis Dresser, who I would reach out to. And he was a non-formal mentor, but I would reach out whenever I had challenges. And he would call me back or whatever it was. But it was, I have a problem, I would seek it. And it was usually pretty tactical. It was like, hey, what do I think about comp plan design for a brand new division we're starting? I have no idea where to start. And he'd be like, well, think about X, Y, or Z. Or he would tell me like, hey, I think you need to hire a VP of sales who's done X, Y, or Z, and you would continuously provide it. So then there was formal coaching. Somebody that we shared, Asif Ramji, who had gone through multiple private equity raises, was, in the fintech space historically, knew a lot of the players, who we had a formal call on a once a month basis that had an agenda, and that he actually wouldn't take the phone call if we didn't, one, provide him what we were coming to do and report back on what he asked us to do.
He's our accountability coach.
And bring us and close that back. And we learned so much across that journey, and owe so much to him.
So much. I want to give a little bit of a mention here. Asif is probably my biggest mentor. I think our biggest collective mentor. And somebody that understood our business, somebody that understood us, and somebody who was just a couple years ahead of us. I think it's one thing to go get mentorship and, from people. It's important to cultivate different styles of mentors and different styles of coaches. Not one person is going to be able to solve your things, but you should have this, right? Like the president has a cabinet. Yep. Right. And they can go to somebody who knows environmental stuff. When there's an environmental thing, there's an expert in that cabinet for that. When there's a policy thing, when there's an international thing. So it's important as a business, as a CEO, for you to have your cabinet.
Yep.
And something that I think is really important, and I think is really outdated in the coaching industry or in mentorship, is you want to have mentors and coaches who have also actually been there and done that. And the ones that have been there and done that have proven to be the ones that have given us the best actual advice, because you were just there.
Yep.
And you're Asif wasn't he was an amazing CEO, but he was an active CEO. Good. So it wasn't like we were getting advice from someone
been there, who had been
30 years ago. And those
also bring a ton of wisdom.
Bring a lot of wisdom, and we had those mentors around. But from an accountability, from a monthly coaching perspective, we had somebody who was in the game, who was playing the game at the top of their level, and it was like being coached by Kobe Bryant, like in his prime time.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were like young, like new players, like entering the space. Yeah. And Kobe was like, here, I'm at the top. Let me share you. Let me share you about what I'm doing every day and it wasn't just about business. Like that's my favorite part of the mentor relationship that we have with Asif, who's like who's become a family to us over the last 10 years, it wasn't just, there was like a business component of it, which was really serious, heavy accountability, very direct. I mean, I cried so much in so many of our conversations because it was hard. It's hard to get that feedback sometimes, and you're doing your best and you're like, okay, well, you got to do more of it, or this is how we're going to think about it. So there was that business component of it. But then there was also like how we're doing as humans component of it. And like nobody else, like he would truly ask about life outside of just the day-to-day, and are we actually enjoying the journey, and like what are we doing to our mental health, and truly like pushing us on like our workout routines and everything else, and like really
during
helping
Capital
us.
Raise, he was like, this is like running a marathon. You need to hire a trainer. You need to think about, here are the things you're going to eat.
So many life things I feel like were just part of that incredible journey. And so I don't think we would have made it if we didn't have the guidance or the support. And it's almost that insurance, right? Like when you are a new founder, an entrepreneur, you don't need to know everything. Like your job is not to know everything, but you have to be able to go solve those problems and find people that do know how to solve them.
And there's the only one I'll add, and there's a laundry list of names like Gil Friedman, Richard Lucker. There's so many different people that have helped us along the way. But one thing I'll add is we also had peer group style. And they might not even be mentor, call them friends, but you also need people to just like bitch with, right? So like COVID was a very tough time frame.
Like our CEO cohorts. I mean, think about the challenges
we were going through. There was no perfect answer. Do you bring people back? Do you do this? Do you allow that? Do you go to work from home? What are you doing with this policy? There's so many different challenges that exist in the world today, whether they're political landscape based, whether financial landscape based. And I think having people that were alongside us in the journey that we could come back, collaborate with, and hey, what are you doing in your company that's roughly the same size or roughly the same industry? That was probably some of the most special timeframes that was also for us, is being able to have, and we were lucky that we had each other, but being able to still
surround ourselves with at our size. Super important. And we also had a organizational coach as well. So we really believe in, getting the right support around. We also had a coach it was almost like the what's that TV show? Billions? No, not Billions.
Wendy. Yeah. Wendy and Billions.
Yeah. And Wendy and Billions, who's just like this org coach to like hype people up, get the sales team excited, or get, someone's in their head, or the CEO's in her head or his head. And there's fighting going back and forth between like executives. And so we almost had our own Wendy, Laura, who is just over the last, she was with us like from year one throughout our whole organization. It wasn't just coaching for me and Sal. It was coaching for our entire organization, and just coaching, mentorship, a huge part of the success journey. So find your tribe. It's so important, and it keeps you sane. Like, it's like the one space that you can go, I can't pillow talk with my husband about like the different levels of stress. You have a safe space to go to. Otherwise, you do bring this shit home all the time too. So you need therapy, right? Like, and you need business therapy too.
You need an outlet. You just need an outlet to get it out. But
you need it. So Sal, closing out on the Stacks journey, I would love, I know Sal, you and I talk about starting our own podcast called Entrepreneur Shit. Yeah. So coming to, an iTunes and Spotify near you. I'd love to know from you guys, if you guys are enjoying this episode, let us know. You could tag Sal on Instagram. You could tag me. You could, post on LinkedIn, whatever. Let us know if you do want us to start the show, what topics you want us to discuss and to talk about. But kind of coming back full circle in that journey, the day that we kind of signed the paperwork who gets to sell their company once and then sell it again a year after, right? Yeah. And we've had so many successes. A time that I think about is when we walked away from that $17 million offer for selling our company. That day, the unicorn party, like the day that it was there, what was going on in your head? What are some of like that, like what went on when you actually achieved everything that you wanted to ever achieve?
It's a tough question for me. When I go through, for me, on my own emotional state, it takes like a little bit more to settle in. So like when I'm in that setting, it's like you always believe you're going to get somewhere, but you don't believe it until you get there. I don't know how else to say it. And so I think when you looked around and you saw the excitement through other people's eyes is probably when it becomes the most real. Like, we got to write, 200 checks of over 6 figures for people. Like, when people ask like, well, what were the most rewarding moments? Those are is like seeing other people win, like, I think is some of the biggest highlights. And so I think that moment was just like it was worth it, right? I think that there were so many things that people don't get to see. And I'm sure if you follow any of us on Instagram, you get to see the fun side of us, etc. But there's a shit ton of other stuff that goes on beyond, behind the scenes, from really tough conversations, tough nights, sleepless nights, away from family, all the sacrifices, and not just of the two of us, of all of the people that are around us, our family members, our friends, your daughters, my mom, my dad, everybody that supports us to get here. So I think it's like a really thankful moment. And I think when they get to see you win, like, I think that's the most rewarding piece of it all. It's like a minor sigh of relief, because you're like, all right, now I just entered like a new sort of goal. And then it's just a speechless moment to just be there and be proud of what you've accomplished.
I love that. I love that you said that it made it worth it. I agree with that. I would say that it doesn't, like, I wish almost like I look back, and I don't know if you feel that way. We put so much emphasis on a milestone to validate like our success. Yeah. And I almost wish it wasn't that way to validate it, because if we hadn't reached $1 billion, like if we hadn't sold it for that, would it have still been worth it?
Yeah, it absolutely would have.
Right?
I do. But I think that, at least for me, like, and maybe that's something we should work on, right? I think that's a great one to say, like, let's have a therapy session on. But it goes back to
I wonder what Laura would say right now.
It's the competitive nature, right? I think that it's like the 3-month goal, the 6-month goal stuff we talked about. If you had done it in 7 months, would you have quit? Right? Like, it's those types of things that it's always great to give yourself real goals to go get, and then to beat or surpass. But you are right. And it's probably what I said in the beginning time. It wasn't the outcome. It was probably a time to reflect on the journey and be proud of the journey. And that could have been at 700 million. That could have been at $500 million. That could have been at 200 million. Or it could have been at 3 billion, right? I think that each one of them is just a reflection of the journey. And if you're proud of the accomplishments you had along the journey, then I think the results will come wherever it may be.
I agree. It definitely, like, it just doesn't feel real. I'll still tell you now, like, do you feel like it's real? Like when you read the headlines and like people are like, we're everywhere, we're speaking at conferences, we're doing all this stuff. Like, do you sometimes like, how do you zoom out of yourself to be like, okay, this is my life? How do you feel about that?
It's tough. I don't know. It feels very normal to me, right? It just feels like, oh yeah, we did it. Like I sometimes like the more when people
do you discount it a lot?
Massively discount it. I think it's when people bring it up, like when you're like out somewhere, like, oh my God, can you have 5 minutes? Can I talk to you about this? Or I want to build this, or I want to do that. And like how excited they are to speak to you or do it. I think that's where I'm like, oh shit, yeah, we did do that. Like it's like a reminder of it in that manner. Because for us, I think we're just so heads down in executing that we didn't really
look up.
Yeah. And so when you look up, you're like, oh shit, I'm up here. It's super cool. But like, it's like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, but you blacked out for all of it, right? So
that's entrepreneurship right there.
Like, hey, you got to the top, but like you're like, oh shit, yeah, I'm up here. It's cool. Yeah, I did it. So it's like that's
fuck. God,
that's kind
now
of
what?
Now what? Yeah.
What?
That's kind of the way I describe it.
I would say the first time, like I went through a lot post that. I felt like I felt the most lost actually. Like for me personally, it's like I almost lost my sense of goals. I feel like a lot of my goals, like I had the goals and then we accomplished all the things. Like I think my goal was to take it to 100 million. Like that was it. Like that was like the first goal that we had. And we had like, even for our initial investors, like our Christmas gift was this like really nice bottle of Macallan's. Like it's like a nice scotch. And we replaced out the tag on top, and it was like a new label we had put on, and it had like our logo and the company. It said age to 100 million. And I'm like, when we get to 100 million, we'll open it as a board and as a team. Like my vision, I didn't even know I could go build a $1 million business, let alone $100 million business, let alone $1 billion business.
Yeah.
But you, I feel, always knew. And maybe this is just my, like, and we've never had these conversations, by the way. Like, this is really cool. I feel like you always knew where we were going next. And then you pushed me to be like, no, we're going to go, like, you got to keep going. Like, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. Like, Chase, like, here's another goal. And I feel like I wasn't even, like, we'd get to this goal, and then you'd, like, raise the bar to the next one. And, like, we'd almost get there, and, like, you'd raise the bar again. And again, we'd collectively, and I'd be like, okay, yes, I'm in. So it wasn't never like I wasn't on board with the plan. But at that point, I almost felt like there was no other place to go. And I remember like we got our new board plan, and it was like taking it from like 1 to like 1.6 or like something like, that's a lot, guys. Like, like growing from growth, like it's a lot. It was a big growth number. Yeah. But like as a founder, as a visionary, as like the leaders, I wasn't excited. Like there was something about me for the first time at that point when I got the new plan back. I was like, man, that just seems small. Like I just feel like that's not changing. Like, do I want to continue? Like I didn't feel that why. Like I feel like all the things I wanted to fulfill, I checked those things off. Like the people, the rewards, we created 30 millionaires like along the way. We did so much for the community. Like all the things that were on the list were there. And then I was like, here's just like, go do more from like a revenue perspective. I felt the most like lost during that time. And I remember, I took my first real vacation after 10, like a real one. Like the first one was like that honeymoon. Like I felt like I truly unplugged. Yep. And then 10 years later, or 8 years later, took this trip to Europe with my family last summer. And I came back really confused. I came back with this sense of like, I just don't know if I want to continue down this journey. Yep. And I don't know if it was like this new chapter. And I felt like you were pushing me to keep going, and you were trying to show me, you were trying to excite me. You were like, okay, maybe we could take it IPO. Like the only thing that I was like, okay, you know what? Like I could, because I want to dream big. Like I almost got to the point where I was used to having a big goal, and like when the goal went like, the therapy session, I remember, like the coaching session, I remember I was having a conversation with Laura, And she said, well, this happened to Neil Armstrong. And, he landed on the moon and, then what? Yeah. And, he was like, he didn't go back again on another mission. Like, there were so many things that happened in his career that like, he just was like, okay, I did the thing that I like wanted to go do. And there was like a syndrome that I'm probably describing it all wrong, but it's like, what happens when you actually shoot to land on the moon and you actually land?
Yeah, the dog catches the car.
The dog actually catches the car.
Yeah, what do you do now?
What do you do now?
Yeah.
And I came back and I was like, I need a new mission. Like, I need a new mission. I'm just not motivated in that way. And I want to build again. And I want to build something different. And I'm good. I'm done. For the first time, I felt like I was able to really let go of this I felt like the chapter closed, right? Like for me. Yeah. And that was what was going on in my head last year. And we started to have the conversations with everyone around like my succession planning. And like naturally, I just assumed that you would be the next, like you'd want to do this and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
What made your decision? And I know this is a question that many of you guys asked and on the exit of Stacks, because we're still the largest shareholders at Stacks, but we chose to leave together. Yeah. What was going on in your head and what was that decision like? And this is the first time I'm getting to ask you in such a public way.
Yeah, look, we are the largest individual shareholders. We absolutely believe in the Stacks mission and vision. And we built a amazing foundational company. And so I think when we started self-reflecting, like nobody can ever take that away from us. So it was the identity crisis portion of like, okay, who am I without Stacks? Because we had just known it for over a third of our life.
Your
was
work
associated.
Becomes your worth.
Spot on. And so I think for me, I definitely explored the idea of doing it. I was excited about it. I was excited about continuing on the journey, setting up the company to go public. But I think the big thing was, as long as I did it in a way that was autonomous to the vision that we shared.
Yeah.
And I think that, as part of these journeys, when you go through, there are multiple visions, right? You have investors that you have to return capital for, you have customers that you need to maintain. And when those start to be conflicting in the direction that you may want to go, I think it's an opportunity for you to check back in with yourself and saying, is that what you want to do? Do you want to be an employee? Do you want to still be the visionary? Do you want to be that? And when you start to look at that, and when you no longer feel that you are the visionary and just driving the bus, but rather following directions, like you're listening to Google Maps now. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's amazing areas and it might be the exact direction needs to go. I think that's when the self-reflection came into of being like, you know what, it's probably the time to go out with you, because I didn't know if it was going to be fun anymore, right? And I think that was sort of the big thing. I think the things that were important to me, important to us, if they were going to get challenged in a format that probably didn't set well with us, I think it was an opportunity for us to, be champions of the business from the sideline, and super excited of where we are today, right? And wish Stacks all the best of success. But right now, it's really about us time and getting ready to build what we want to build next.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I think a lot of people have asked, and we just haven't had like a format to really share it in as well. And I think it kind of comes back to in the beginning of the episode, you had shared about when people listen is when you're really passionate and you're innovative. And you use the word innovation and you use the word passion. And I think every founder goes through this journey, right? You've seen it with like every single, when you bring on investors and you bring on, these are all great parts of your journey. Like your company would not be successful. I wouldn't change any single thing that we did, at all. I'm so appreciative of every single person that's come into our company, good and bad. I'm appreciative of all of our investors that have taken us to every single milestone, because you need that milestone to get to the next milestone. Our last private equity group was incredible. We would not have been able to take our company from, the 200 million in value to $1 billion in value without their support and their vision, us also tackling along their vision. Like their vision of M&A was not something that either one of us had any experience in. And so it is important, like all these pieces of the puzzle are important. But I think it comes to that point when you lose that, when you don't get to innovate, and I think that when you and then you don't become passionate about that innovation, that is when people stop listening too. Like you had said, people listen, and that's what cultivates that. And I think every founder goes through this piece, and that's why you see founders move out of CEO roles every single day. But it's hard, right? Like, do you feel like it's hard to let go of your baby? Like for me, that's been like, I've been going through this year of a transition of learning. Like I leave the house and I accidentally drive to work every day, by the way. Like literally I've like just now stopped doing that. Is like we're so into our day-to-day habits, and I miss, like there's parts of the business like I definitely don't miss, and I feel so much happier and like less stressed of so many things, but I miss our people and I miss all of that. Did you have a hard time transitioning from the day-to-day of being like go, solving problems to then like all of a sudden retired life?
Yeah. I mean, you go from 16-hour days, calendar scripted.
Yeah.
From the moment you wake up to what you eat, to what dinner or travel plans you have, to all of the sudden having white space on your calendar. It was a shocking, weird feeling. It took a bit. And originally it was like, oh, travel, go do this. And you do that. And then you return from this, month, 2 months, whatever, however time you can do it for. And then you get back, and then there is an emptiness. There's an emptiness that you want to fulfill, because we are builders and we are passionate and we like to contribute. And when we don't feel like we're solving problems, because I believe I'm on this earth to problem solve, it just feels empty. And so you start to think back and you're like, all right, what do I want to do next? And how do I re-spark that sort of fire that I've always had? And that's why you see so many successful entrepreneurs do multiple things and end up in multiple companies multiple times.
Why do entrepreneurs become serial entrepreneurs?
It's a high. I think it's as simple as that. I mean, you can look, Elon Musk, everybody knows this person, right? You went from PayPal, being part of the PayPal mafia, to Twitter, to Tesla, to SpaceX. Like, these are wildly different pieces. You have Mark Cuban, who's gone from, a radio station aspect of digitally transforming online to cost plus drugs. Like, he didn't know anything about medication, or maybe at least I don't think he did, but he saw a problem and a need, and he's just a problem solver, and what he wants to do and contribute to society in the way that he feels like he can bring that. I think it's a gift that some of us and all of us have within us for the entrepreneur community, that we just like to solve big problems and leave, hopefully, the world in a better place.
I love it. I'm definitely excited about what our next chapter looks like. Do you have a vision for the next chapter?
I think the thing for me is making people a lot of money. I think I want to make a lot of people a lot of money. I really do. That. I don't exactly.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I want to make women a lot of money.
And that's what it is for me. I think it's like we've been blessed and to have had great successes, and I want to share that amongst as many people as we can along the next journey that we get to go do.
I love that. I love that about you, and you are the most generous person that I know. And I'm really excited. I really been enjoying just doing this. I really do think that, we've literally talked about doing our own show separate. I know this show is very specifically focused on female entrepreneurs, but I do think there is a space to share. We've had so many lessons in entrepreneurship, and that there are so many other founders. And I do believe that the way to learn is through other people's experiences. And so I'm sure all of you, I'm learning even right now sitting with you today. And so I'm excited to see where this goes. I do talk to you for hours every day. You're my first phone call of the day, my last phone call of the day. But now, what an amazing, incredible journey, Sal, that you've had in your career. I've been just a little speck on that, getting to, he's like, yeah, right. Enjoy that. I would say that you've also been really humble in your success. Like, you have been one to never, you've always let me take that front seat.
Sure.
And I think, one of the questions, like Carlos, our podcast man, we were running through some questions that he had about us. And he goes, do you ever get jealous of each other? And I'd like to hear, I want to hear your response to that. But you've always been such a champion of also pushing me to be in, so many times I didn't want to be in the driver's seat, and you pushed actually me on the opposite to take the driver, to take the wheel.
Yeah, look, I don't think there was ever an ounce of jealousy or envy in that way. I think it was about winning, right? I think that's what it was. And I feel just as big of a contributor to the success as you do. And for me, it wasn't about is my face on the article or do I come second in the name? Those are great. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody loves to be in the spotlight and wants the interview, and that's also nothing wrong with for the people that want that, right? I think that's it. But I just enjoyed executing, and I felt that at the time, you were doing a phenomenal job, and it was paying dividends not only to the business. You were able to be an outward CEO, which I think a lot of people forget that that's a huge part of the job, and allowed me to concentrate a lot of the skill sets that I had. And so I think it, once again, just created a great partnership. But yeah, no, there's no envy, no jealousy. I would do it all over again, in the same manner.
To close out this amazing AMA, this amazing interview, probably my favorite one. Of all time.
I love it.
I was going to say this year, but of all time. But our audience has we need to ask Sal the burning questions.
All right, is this like
are you ready?
Rapid fire?
I don't know if it'll be rapid fire because I want you to be able to take your time to answer.
Okay.
But the number one question that I have for my audience is this, Sal. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you single?
I am single. Super rapid fire, easy.
You are single. There's nothing more you want to add. Are you looking to date? We saw an application. Some women said that there was you posted a poll on accepting
Ronnie's wedding.
Accepting applications for a wife. Are you serious about dating? What's happening there?
I'm serious about dating.
What is dating life now like in this world?
It's very different. Obviously.
Do you enjoy it?
I think it has its moments. There's a lot of fun to it. I think the competition is slim amongst the guys, actually. It's actually a pretty good spot to be a dude, in my opinion.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I personally think so. Some other dudes may massively disagree with me.
Sal, you are literally a very young, handsome.
Fair enough.
Young,
so
handsome,
maybe different,
successful.
different perspective of it. But no, I enjoy it, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, so you are single, ready to mingle.
Sure.
Okay, because my question is, are you how many kids do you want in your how many nieces and nephews?
Okay, this is not turning into a dating show. Let's continue.
How many kids do you want? I've never asked you that.
At least 2.
At least 2. Okay. Yes, we get some cousins. Okay, Sal, you live life to the fullest. How do you do it? How much sleep do you actually get?
Wow. I've gone through phases of life of sleep, is what I would say.
And the follow-up question, there was a lot on morning routines too. So how do you stay, because you're always go, go, go. So everyone notices you're always go, go, go. You travel from city to city. How do you sleep? What is your routine?
I should probably prioritize sleep more, is what I'd say. In general, during the weekdays, I'm going to bed decent hour, 10-ish is actually the truth. But that doesn't mean I don't go through spurts. I can sacrifice sleep pretty easily and be fairly high performing. And so you will see me in segments where I can get 3 to 4 hours of sleep and absolutely continue to do things. But in general, that's what it looks like. Morning routines, I wake up 6:10 every morning. Still to this day, even post stacks, I haven't switched.
6:10 on the dot. You're a believer in the random number thing.
I am. I do believe. If you invite somebody to your house at 7:30 for dinner, what time are you coming?
7:40, 7:45.
First of all, Suneera's coming in at 8:25 for the record. But yes, you're not coming. But if I told you, hey, Suneera, we have a party, you have to be there at 7:36.
Yeah, I would be there at 7:36.
Because you're why did he tell me 7:36? And so I believe that if you provide people specific times. No, he would do this
for meeting times too.
Meeting times as well. I think it creates a different sense of urgency in people.
I love that tip. Okay, so you really don't sleep. I would say that you literally are you can function on 0 sleep. I've seen you function on very little sleep. You can definitely be the guy that goes out all night and then is fully functioning the next day. Whereas if I don't sleep, I can't. I will sleep. I will not do that. What is your morning routine like? So you wake up at 6:10. What does a routine look like? Are you a consistent routine guy? Are you a non-consistent routine guy?
Pretty consistent. So it's wake up in the morning. I have a dog. Her name's Miley, so got to run Miley out.
What kind of a dog is Miley?
She's a Maltese. She's 9 years old. She's adorable. So yeah, we run Miles out, and then I run upstairs, make a cup of coffee, get my allergy medicine going, and then jump in the car, go to my workouts. I have a personal trainer, Bruce. So I do that from 7 to 8 with a bunch of friends. From there, get back, shower up, clean up, and then start working on some emails or some areas between like 8:45 to 9:30. And then the day starts. And that could be a variety of different things. Here and there, depending when I get back, like I could take a longer walk around the lake. I always called my dad in the morning since forever. So now when I leave the workout.
For those that don't know, our father passed away in 2020.
Yeah, so he passed away in 2020. So I call one of 3 friends every morning to see whichever one picks up. And every morning, one of them do pick up. Primarily, it's Chin. Chin's like my morning routine phone call. And so we talk about the most random things. Today, we talked about 4th of July and how proud we are to be immigrants in the United States. And, there's 1,000 political views out there, but, this gave us a land of opportunity. And we were talking about mom getting a blue passport the first time and grandma getting a blue passport. And what I learned about Chin, ironically enough, was he used to teach Asian, he's Chinese for those that don't know, to get through the actual exam. It's actually a very tough exam for people that don't know that. And so people didn't speak English. So he's gotten 40.
I remember when Dadi, our grandma, had to go take the exam and we sat with her for her English interview.
Yeah. So he was telling me that he's gotten 40 people their blue passports and he coached them all through getting their piece. I was like, I should not know this about you.
That?
Yeah.
Okay. How many pairs of Jordans do you own?
I own a lot of Jordans. Probably north of 140 pairs. Just a big shoe fanatic and continue to, I think it's a great way to describe personality. I think it's easy to dress them up, dress them down. And, when you can be playful with different colors. And I just love as many pairs of Jordans as I can continue to own. You're
a sports guy. I've seen you travel to all of the sporting events everywhere. Could you tell us what is your favorite sport, or is there one?
It's got to be between the NBA and the NFL. If I have to lean a direction, this is tough. I've never had to actually pick between. I think coming across the NBA Finals, it's probably the NBA right now. I think I've waffled between the NFL and NBA. I'm a huge Cowboy fan, but 20 plus years we've won like one playoff game, so it's kind of tough to continuously be one, but still am. Huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys, but the Mavericks, I think, I don't know, watching basketball, the energy, the people, I think it's,
you got to get the Dallas Cowboys to come invest in stocks. That was definitely an amazing highlight of our career, especially yours. That was something really exciting.
Got to meet Jerry Jones, go to the Super Bowl.
Are you going to try to get Mark Cuban now, since like that was like the next one for our next investor?
So to me, what's really cool about sports, where I think people may miss it at times that aren't big sport fanatics, it's actually the one place where nothing else matters. Race, political, all of the things go away, and people are like team blue or team red. And whichever team you're on, it doesn't matter. This person behind me could be something that I massively disagree with, politically blank, it's irrelevant, because we're both rooting for team red. We will hug it out, share every single experience together. And it's such a unifying experience that I think that only sports in this world brings still to this day from everywhere around the world. And I think it's something that should still be cherished.
That is a beautiful experience. One food that you could eat for the rest of your life.
Pizza. Okay. Simple.
All right. Who met Faisal first, and why is Faisal your best friend? And is that annoying? It's annoying for me.
Faisal is Suneera's husband. You met Faisal first, and then Faisal and I obviously hit it off. Why we are best friends? It's very simple. I think we get along well. He's one of the nicest humans you will ever meet if you ever get to meet him. It's actually funny because I think most people get to meet me first and they're like, Sal's awesome. Then they meet Suneera and they're like, Suneera's way cooler sibling. And then people that we both know get to meet Faisal and then they're like, best friends with Faisal, talking. Faisal's like on their boat or having dinner without the two of us. And we're like, what happened here?
We're top livers.
It's what happens in all of our relationships. But
everybody loves Faisal.
Everybody loves Faisal.
Everybody loves Faisal. All right. We'll close this off by, tell us an embarrassing story. There was a couple about Sunny. So we'll do two. Tell us an okay, I'm kind of worried about this, about Sunny. Something embarrassing story, or something that from your childhood, something embarrassing, like a story that makes you like laugh. That
we did a variety of things as young kids. Like I have scars left and right. We used to, one time we egged a house on Halloween, and instant karma. I ran into a stop sign, legit. So I had to I had a cut on my head. It was just kids be kids kind of situation there. Yeah. We used to own convenience stores and fill up balloons, and we would, take the helium from the balloons. And this one, Suneera took too much helium from a balloon where she knocked out all of the shelves in the convenience store. And so we've done crazy things to the point where, when we talk about entrepreneurship, I mean, Suneera used to put on an actual physical chicken suit, and spin a sign on the corner of the street to get people to come into Church's Chicken.
That was my first job, by the way. My first actual real job when I turned 16 was at one of the Church's Chicken. We had a Church's Chicken in Arlington, Texas. I was a sicko gas station with a Church's Chicken, and I literally the job was to give kids balloons and wear this giant chicken suit and tell people to come in for a Saturday special or whatever the sign said, and just to hand balloons out in Texas. Scorching heat.
So we have a ton of stories, but all great.
I love that. That's funny. That's just literally made me spit out. Okay, so 3 words to describe your sister, and not the ones that we want to hear.
3 words to describe you.
Oh shit. We'll close it out after this one.
Opinionated.
Okay. Yes. True.
I think that one is there. Not ones we want to hear. She's definitely opinionated. She can be...
You can tell the nice ones after.
There are not that many not nice ones. I think opinionated is definitely going to be the one that pops off to my head. She can be strong-willed.
Yeah.
Right? So when goes back to the opinionated, but strong-willed. And then, lastly, I would say... I don't have any other not
I
so
love
great
that
ones.
You're totally struggling with this. Okay, so 3 words to describe your sister just overall.
Unselfish. So very much putting everybody else in front. She's vocal. So you can take it in either side of that one you want to. Going back to the other one, she is vocal. So when she has a perspective, she ensures that you hear it out loud. And so and then just tenacious. I think you just don't take no for an answer and continue to find a way in anything and everything. It could be as simple as when you want Chinese food or not, to talking about raising capital while being pregnant. So it just it's always been there.
Sal, this has just been so much fun just having this conversation with you. I feel like we haven't even had this in so long. We're always so busy on the go. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable, sharing this side. I could not have done any of this without you. For those that really don't know this, it really takes a village to do things. And my better half, every single day in my life, in work and all the things, I have the best support system, and I have that at home with my partner and my husband, and for all the things with my children. But as a family and as business and thinking about life and our goals, all of that I share every day with you, Sal. And I'm super, super proud of you, as your business partner. And as your sister, it's incredible. I get to do it. I get to do all the things. And one of my favorite things is going to the White House. Last visit to the White House, we're actually going to go see Kamala, Madam Vice President, next week. And we were standing outside of the White House, waiting to get inside. And we both looked at each other, and the one thing, we had a moment at that moment. And the thing that we're talking about is how crazy, you get this one invite to go do something special, and when for those entrepreneurs, like it's very lonely being an entrepreneur. That is like if I were to sum up entrepreneurship in anything, it's the loneliness that's the hardest, and it's lonelier at the top. And as lonely as I've always felt in different ways, I've never actually been lonely. Yeah. I've always gotten to share it with you. And I look to you in that moment, and we're like probably in one of the highlights of our lives is like getting, as immigrant kids, like to go walk into the White House, be invited by the president, and get an opportunity to share our story and to, represent who we are. And we look at each other and we're like, man, like this is one of those moments, and I'm so lucky that we get to do it together, because no one else will understand that. Like we can come back and talk about it. I can go back and tell Faisal, and sometimes we miss out on like we can come back and tell our spouses, we can come back and tell our friends and our family. But the one person that always gets it, like in every aspect, the hard it, the good it, all of the things in between is you. And so I'm never lonely because I have you, and I can't. Mutual. And that's just the greatest thing. And so I wish this truly upon my kids, and, hopefully, when your kids get added to the mix, and we can all hopefully carry on this amazing family bond that we have, but also for all of those that, listen to this episode, feel not just inspired, but motivated to build that team, right? Like you are that is your family. The friends that you choose can also become your family. And so find that tribe, and it truly is one team, one dream. Thank you everyone for this 2-part episode. If you enjoyed it, screenshot this episode, tag Sal at Sal Rehmetullah. We'll be linking it in the show notes. You could tag me, you could tag CEO School, and let us know what you loved, your biggest takeaways, and if we want to invite Sal back, because we'd love to have him. And also if you're interested in us having our own series and like what the series could be about that's different from CEO School. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And if you tune in to subscribe to that, we are really excited about building this next unicorn. And so we want to build, we're going to build again, we're going to build big. And we'd love to take you along on that journey, and just really excited. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening in. Until next week at CEO School. Bye everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you loved it, leave us a review. We are so proud to bring you authentic conversations, game changer expert guests, and valuable content on and offline. The best compliment you can give us is by screenshotting today's show and tagging us on Instagram at CEO School and at Suneera Madani. We are obsessed with swag, so don't be surprised if we want to send you some. Thanks for tuning into class today, and remember, nothing bad happens when women make more money.